You can spend hours struggling through something alone before it even crosses your mind to ask for help. And even when it does cross your mind, something in you resists it. Almost like asking would cost you something you can't afford to lose. That's not stubbornness, that's not pride. That's your nervous system doing exactly what it learned to do. Think about the last time you needed something from someone. Maybe it was small. Help moving a box, a ride somewhere, someone to proofread an email. And instead of just asking, you sat with it. You rehearsed how you might phrase it. You calculated whether the person was too busy, whether you'd seem like a burden, whether it was even worth bringing up, and then maybe you just didn't. You figured it out yourself, told yourself it was easier that way. And it was easier, but not for the reasons you think. There's a specific kind of person who finds asking for help genuinely distressing. Not inconvenient, not awkward. Distressing, in a way that's almost physical. And for a long time, psychology treated this as a personality quirk. Maybe they were proud, maybe they were controlling, maybe they just liked doing things their own way. But that framing misses almost everything important about what's actually happening inside them. Compulsive self-reliance. The kind where you'd rather stay up until 2 a.m. solving something yourself than send a 3-sentence message asking for guidance, isn't a personality trait. It's a survival strategy. And like most survival strategies, it made complete sense at the time it was built. Attachment research gives us one of the clearest windows into this. John Bowlby's foundational work on attachment theory showed us something that seems obvious in hindsight. And later, Mary Ainsworth's strange situation studies proved it. The way our earliest caregivers responded to our needs becomes the template our nervous system uses forever. Not just in childhood, forever, unless something actively disrupts that template. When a child consistently reaches out and gets warmth back, they develop what researchers call a secure base. They learn that needing something is okay, that asking is safe, that vulnerability leads to connection. But when a child reaches out and gets inconsistency, sometimes warmth, sometimes irritation, sometimes nothing at all, something different gets wired in. The research calls this anxious attachment, and one of its less discussed features is what happens to the help-seeking impulse specifically. Anxiously attached children don't stop needing things. Of course they don't. But they start to experience the act of expressing that need as threatening. Forximieux, because need plus expression has, historically for them, produced unpredictable results. Sometimes it worked. Often it didn't. And the not knowing, the inconsistency, is actually more dysregulating to the nervous system than consistent rejection would be. The brain cannot habituate to a pattern it cannot predict. So what does it do? It starts hyperactivating its threat detection system around moments of vulnerability. It flags asking for help as a situation that requires maximum alertness, and over time, that hyperactivated threat response becomes automatic. You don't consciously think, if I ask for help, I might be rejected. You just feel a vague but powerful resistance. You feel the urge to handle it yourself. Your body moves away from the ask before your mind has even fully formed the thought. This is where something called the fawn response becomes relevant. And this is the part that almost never gets mentioned in conversations about self-reliance. Most people have heard of fight, flight, and freeze as stress responses. The fawn response is less talked about but equally important. It's the stress response that looks like appeasing, accommodating, making yourself small. And there's a suppressed version of fawning that researchers have started paying closer attention to. The person who, rather than appeasing others, preemptively eliminates all situations where they might need something from someone. It sounds like self-sufficiency from the outside. It functions like self-protection from the inside. If I never ask, I never have to find out if you'll come through for me. If I never ask, I never hand you the power to disappoint me. The self-reliance schema, that internal rulebook that says, I handle my own problems, isn't about capability or independence as a value. It's about controlling exposure to rejection before it can happen. Researcher Kenneth Levy at Penn State, along with colleagues studying rejection sensitivity, found that individuals high in this trait don't just feel bad when rejected. They preemptively restructure their behavior to avoid any situation that could produce rejection. And what's fascinating is that they often do this so automatically that they don't experience it as avoidance. They experience it as preference. I just prefer to do things myself. That felt preference is real, but its origin is protection, not personality. This shows up in a very specific way that you might recognize. When someone offers help, does it feel uncomfortable? Not just unnecessary, actually uncomfortable? Like there's a small alarm going off somewhere that says, what do they want? Why are they offering this? What will I owe them? That alarm isn't cynicism. It's internal working models, the unconscious relational scripts laid down in early experience, running their code. The brain learned that receiving help comes with unpredictable social costs. So even generous offers feel like potential transactions. Even kindness activates a quiet kind of vigilance. And this matters because it means the solution people usually suggest, just ask for help, people want to help you, doesn't work. Knowing that logically doesn't touch the underlying threat encoding. The nervous system doesn't respond to logical arguments. It responds to accumulated experience. You can know with your whole mind that your coworker is trustworthy and still feel the resistance when you go to type out a message asking a favor. The knowing and the feeling live in different systems. The prefrontal cortex handles your rational understanding. The amygdala handles your threat response. And when the amygdala has learned to flag vulnerability as dangerous, it can override the prefrontal cortex before you've even had a chance to think. This is why insight alone, knowing where the pattern comes from, doesn't automatically change it. People can spend years understanding their anxious attachment and still feel the resistance every time. Understanding is the beginning of change, not the mechanism of it. What researchers like Mario Mikulincer, who has studied attachment and self-disclosure extensively, have found is that the path toward more secure functioning requires corrective relational experiences. Small moments where the ask happens and the world doesn't end. Where the vulnerability is offered and received without punishment. These experiences don't just update a belief. They update the internal working model itself. They give the nervous system new data to revise its predictions with. But here's what makes this genuinely hard for people who carry this pattern. The very relational experiences that would update the wiring are exactly what the wiring is designed to prevent you from seeking. You can't get the evidence that asking is safe if you never ask. The system is self-sealing. The protection becomes the prison, and the quiet cost of that is worth sitting with. Because compulsive self-reliance doesn't just keep you from asking for a favor now and then. It slowly builds a version of your life where interdependence, the kind that creates actual closeness, actual trust, actual intimacy, never really develops. You can be surrounded by people who care about you and still feel fundamentally alone. Not because they don't show up, but because you've never given them the chance to. Autonomy becomes emotional regulation. Solitude becomes safety. And the distance that was supposed to protect you becomes the thing you're quietly grieving. There's a researcher named Sue Johnson who developed emotionally focused therapy. And one of her core observations is that humans are not designed for radical independence. We are neurologically and evolutionarily wired for a specific kind of regulated connection with other people. Our nervous systems co-regulate. Our stress responses calm faster in genuine proximity to safe others. We are not meant to white-knuckle everything alone. And when we do, when we've learned to, it costs us something that's very hard to name, but very easy to feel. If you recognize yourself somewhere in this, that recognition matters. Not because it means something is broken in you. It doesn't. It means something in you was trying very hard to protect something that felt fragile. The part of you that resists asking for help kept you safe for a long time. It just doesn't know the environment has changed. It doesn't know that you're not a child anymore, waiting to see if someone will come through. The question isn't whether you can do things alone. You clearly can. The question is whether you're choosing to, or whether you're just following a script that was written for you before you were old enough to know you had a choice.